This is The Front Stretch on AM 590, brought to you by Joe's Karting, online at joeskarting.com.
This is Turn 2, presented by the Party Pantry in Council Bluffs, just off the beaten path at 35th and 5th Avenue. It's a great local gas station that you're going to be able to get some great supplies. Your everyday stuff. They're going to be able to pick up your beer, your liquor, your food, your gas, whatever you need to get.
Beer comes first, right?
And they've got some great prices because they understand that gas prices are really gouging you right now. So they want you to step inside and save a couple of dollars. Get to the Party Pantry, 35th and 5th Avenue, right there in Council Bluffs, off the beaten path. And we say that off the beaten path because when you go on Main Street and Broadway, you're going to pay top dollar for your gas.
Oh, yeah.
But if you get off the beaten path,
you're going to save some money and get really good gas.
Exactly. So get to the Party Pantry. We want to say thanks to them for sponsoring Turn 2. And the Jesus. It just got childish in here. But this is Turn 2, and as promised, we're going to talk about some of the changes in the silly season for NASCAR world. There has been an absolute ton of changes in the NASCAR world. One of the biggest ones and one of the biggest stories, and we'll touch on it because now it's kind of a story that has been talked about enough as far as I'm concerned. But at the end of the 2011 season, in fact, in the post-race interviews, Darian Grubb announced that he would not be returning to Stewart-Haas Racing. As the crew chief or as competition director, he was informed after Charlotte Motor Speedway during the chase that he would not be returning as crew chief, and then the next weekend he was informed he's not coming back to Stewart-Haas Racing at all. There would not be a position available. Can you guys ever think of a time where a winning team like that has split up?
Well, I personally can't, but at the same time, you know, they're in the middle of the season. They were struggling quite a bit with bad finishes, bad pit strategy. Tony comes to Darian and says, look, you're not going to be coming back for the 2012 season, but you're still going to remain with us throughout the rest of the year. You know, and Darian did his job, and they ended up winning a championship. You know, and now that with Steve Addington coming over to Tony Stewart, you know, there's the cohesiveness that Darian and Tony built is gone, but Tony's not really out any cohesiveness because, I mean, he worked with Addington in the past.
Right, and Steve can just step in and fill that role.
Yeah.
This isn't necessarily a bad move. It's an unprecedented move. And to be honest with you, I mean, it's not something that really, when you think of it, how the 14 team ended the regular season and started the chase, if it had come out then that Darian Grubb was not going to be returning, I don't think anybody would have said that's not a bad decision because, I mean, he'd been there for 3 years.
Right.
And really, they were missing. I mean, we're not talking about hitting on 8 cylinders. They were maybe hitting on 6.
They just couldn't finish.
Right.
That was the main thing.
Right.
Yeah, but now last year I'd mentioned on the front stretch that when you were Tony Stewart, I mean, Andrew, you have people that work on your late model with you. You have your pit crew. Now, understandably, you own your car, but, you know, if you've got a ride, you know, let's say you're Jimmy Johnson and you're sponsored with a ride, but all of a sudden Jimmy Johnson has to be the car owner. You know, he has to find all the sponsors. He has to do all that. You know, that's going to take away from your drive a little bit. So, you know, you had to give him time to get there. I thought Tony last year would have been top 5 in points. I went out on a limb a couple times, said he would win the championship, and I was shocked he won it. This year, I think he's going to be I'm going to go out early and say he's going to be my choice for the championship already because he's so comfortable now. He knows what it takes. He's got that monkey off his back. The pressure's gone. He's got Steve Addington, who he's familiar with. And he's going to be deadly this year.
Listen, he's got 2 things going for him: confidence and swagger. And it's a good thing that Old Spice is one of his sponsors because they're able to they're going to be able to tie that in a lot. But I mean, you look at the guy, and he's got confidence and swagger. I mean,
absolutely.
Listen, after Martinsville, he laid down the gauntlet for Carl Edwards. He put pressure on Edwards, and by the way, a guy who performed admirably in the pressure that Tony Stewart was laying on him. But, I mean, the guy has got confidence and swagger, and I think he's got a very good real chance of winning the championship
absolutely.
this year.
You don't count Carl out because, I mean, Carl's right there. He's right there. He tied, and it came down to wins. But Carl, if anything, Carl's really got to be gunning for that championship this year. He'll be fast.
I tell you what, one thing that 99 team is trying desperately not to do is have a 2011 season that the 11 team had. They were championship contenders in 2010, and they had a horrible season in 2011. It was a horrible season. It was Denny Hamlin was, for Denny Hamlin's ability, he was pretty much irrelevant for majority of the season. I mean, his strong tracks, Pocono, he was there, but he didn't win them. he was. I mean, he didn't have the season that he should have after being a championship contender.
I agree, but you can't compare Edwards to Hamlin.
I'm not comparing them. I'm just saying that the 99 team is trying to make sure they don't have a year like the 11 did.
They'll never have a year like the 11.
Well, the 11 team did make some changes in the offseason. Mike Ford, longtime crew chief of Denny Hamlin and the 11 team, who led them to some great wins and a great seasons, was let go at the end of the season. And Tony Stewart's crew chief, Darian Grubb, who we talked about being let go at the end of 2012, ends up making the move over to the 11 team. He's picked up by Joe Gibbs Racing. Better? Worse? What do you guys think?
You know what? Honestly, in my opinion, I almost think Tony Stewart and Joe Gibbs have a better relationship than we all think. It always seems like Stewart, I know he got let go because of Joey Logano's coming in, but man, it just seems like I think he left Zipadelli there to try to help Gibbs with Logano. Now he's sending Grubb over there. I feel, in my heart, I feel, and I've always said that Stewart is still helping Gibbs. He's just on his own team.
Well, Tony actually did leave the organization.
Yes.
It was at the end of his contract, and there was several things he wasn't happy with. The team wasn't jiving well in the 20. Him and it kind of seemed like him and Zippy were having some friction, but the biggest catalyst of the whole thing, well, I can say with two big catalysts, was that he wanted to own his own team. He wanted to step up and do that next step, and he did not like racing with Toyota. Tony loves Chevys.
Yep.
And he did not like, he was one of the major voices in the Joe Gibbs Racing organization that said, I don't want to switch it to Toyotas when they ended up switching to Toyota. So that was a big factor in Tony leaving the organization. And I think they did this bit of a swap because Joe Gibbs Racing didn't want to let go of Greg Zipadelli because he is a championship crew chief, and he's freaking good. I mean, the guy knows how to win.
He's smart.
And I think Joe Gibbs was okay with letting it go when he realized he was going to get Darian Grubb. I think this is a great move for both organizations because Greg gets to go over and step up in a role and also kind of maintain the same kind of role. He's now going to crew chief for Danica Patrick in the 10 car when she's in the Nationwide Series, and then he's also going to be the director of competition for Stewart Haas Racing. Then Darian Grubb goes over, and he's going to be the crew chief for the 11 team, which is something he really wanted to do. He had offers from Hendrick in the offseason to come be competition director or come be a major factor at Hendrick, and he said, you know what, I'm not ready to go back up to that level. I still want to be a crew chief, and I still want to win championships.
Well, here's what I see with Darian Grubb. I mean, when Denny Hamlin came on the scene years ago with the FedEx sponsorship, they were good out of the chute gate, and everybody was talking about how good they were. And then you saw their performance decline a little bit. Well, what did we see Darian Grubb do last year? Last year they came out, they were pretty respectable, and then their performance declined a little bit, and then they came back and they won a championship. So Darian can take what he's learned from last year with his mistakes, and he can come to a team that's been in the same position, say, hey guys, this is what we need to do. But what Hamlin now has is a crew chief that's won a championship. He's never had that before. So after learning from his mistakes and Grubb, rectifying those, well then, so I see Hamlin, I'm not going to say he's going to win a championship, but he'll be in the chase this year.
I think definitely this is a move that if anything, it just kind of shakes things up a little bit because it obviously didn't work well between Mike Ford and Denny Hamlin. And it's not like we heard arguments on the radio like we would hear with the 22 team between Kurt Busch and Steve Addington, but it just didn't seem to be working right for them. And so this is a good move. And unfortunately, Mike Ford he's one of the many people that were involved in NASCAR in 2011 that is now looking for a place and a home. So Darian Grubb moves over to the 11 team. Greg Zipadelli leaves the 20 team, and he goes over to Stewart Haas Racing to be a nationwide crew chief for Danica Patrick in the 10 and to be competition director for Stewart Haas. And stepping in to fill the role in the 20 team is Jason Ratcliffe. Not a well-known name in the Cup circuit, but he is well-known in the Nationwide circuit. He has been the crew chief for Joe Gibbs Racing, for Denny Hamlin, for Kyle Busch, and also for Joey Logano when they would race down there in the Nationwide Series. He's won a lot of races down there. He's been in the Nationwide Series for a long time, and he's kind of been an up-and-coming at Joe Gibbs Racing. So, although we don't have a lot of information about him as far as being a Cup contender, what do you think? Do you think this shakeup will help Joey? Because
anything could help Joey at this point in his career. Big Bird could come in and be his crew chief, and I think it would be a step up. I mean, it's not right for me to necessarily say that, but I mean, Joey really needs to do anything. I mean, to me, he's not the worst driver out there, but for the talent that he's got, he's not showcasing the talent. And if I was Joe Gibbs, I personally would almost let Joey go. So, Joey, you're going to have to do something, whether that be you have to step up your game or you're going to have to bring in some leadership with your crew chief. So anything that they can do to help Joey is only going to help Joey. It's not going to hurt him at this point, right. I don't think.
Right.
Well, I mean, it's one of those. He obviously is more comfortable in the Nationwide car than he is in his Cup car. When Joey got brought into this was about, 3 years ago, am I correct?
Yeah, it was obviously right when Tony left.
He's about the same age as I am. And I remember this. I remember hearing everything about this kid. Just everything, how well he is, how good he is. And I kind of shook my head. I go, no, this kid can't be nothing. Well, when he came in, it was like, okay, he ran good. He won a race in his first series. Granted, it was a rain out. That doesn't matter. But, I mean, he is so much better, I think, than like Brad Keselowski is. But why is Brad Keselowski running so much better than Logano is?
Right.
I'm thinking that this move with what's his name,
Jason Ratcliffe.
I don't even know who it is. I'm thinking it's going to be a lot better because he is so much more comfortable in that Nationwide car than he is in his Cup car.
Right. And you know what? It takes time. I mean, we see this every day in pro football. A kid, highly touted draft pick, steps in to try to play in the National Football League, and it is such a different level. There is a big gap between the Nationwide Series and the Sprint Cup Series that it takes you a couple of years to really figure out your place and how to win in the Cup Series. And he showed sparks of this stuff. And one of the things that I was kind of thrown off by him was his nickname, Sliced Bread. Everyone called him Sliced Bread.
The next best thing.
He was the next best thing, which, by the way, that is almost as horrible of a nickname as Austin Dillon's celebration slide, whatever. We'll get into that later in the season, but
wait till he gets out there. Logano's going to look like a stud compared to him.
Yeah.
So that wraps up Joe Gibbs Racing, some of the changes over there, some of the changes at Stewart-Haas Racing. So the 22 has had some changes in the offseason. We knew, kind of had a feeling going into the chase that Steve Addington was going to come back because he was in contract negotiations, and there was nothing coming out of those negotiations with Penske Motorsports.
Well, Steve was just getting tired of Kurt's tirades, too.
We all are, frankly.
Yeah.
We all are. And he went over the edge with freaking out on Dr. Jerry Punch. Who, by the way, since they've had several conversations and have mended fences, but I don't care what you say, that is unacceptable. And I think the media has talked about it enough to where obviously it was enough of a story to where Kurt Busch was released from his contract at Penske in the 22. I think there was a lot of factors that went into that. I think obviously his tirades were the prime reason. I mean, if you go back and listen to his radio in the 2011 season, I did this a couple weeks ago, went back and listened to all of his radio that I could find in the 2011 season, and how many times he freaked out that not he was having a bad day or that they missed, that the whole team sucked. And he would scream out of the radio. And listen, you want to talk about a cancer in the locker room, that's a prime example when he's sitting there screaming on the radio about how bad everyone else is. It's everyone else's fault. When he hits the wall and he ruins the aero on that car, it's everyone else's fault. And I think that Shell Pennzoil went to Penske and said, we don't want to be associated with him anymore. And brother Kyle was going through the exact same thing. So in the end, Kurt Busch leaves the 22, and he has got himself a new home. Steve Addington, upgrade, going to Stewart-Haas Racing, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I think Steve's going to have fun, and the fact that Steve's going to have fun with Tony Stewart, you're going to see some amazing things. That's why I'm picking Tony Stewart to win the championship again this year.
Right, okay.
You know what I'm thinking? It's just like you said earlier about how Grubb's going to Hamlin. If it's going to help, it's going to help Hamlin, but then again, it's not going to help Grubb because now Addington has Tony Stewart. Tony Stewart is twice the driver Denny Hamlin is. So I think with Addington going there, because I think he did well with Kurt Busch. Besides, he couldn't keep his driver's head on his shoulders. So I think Tony Stewart's going to be amazing with him.
Well, years ago it was nowadays we're talking Knaus Johnson.
It's still there, bud.
It's still
never
there.
going away.
Hey, NASCAR officials are even talking Knaus Johnson. But anyways,
but anyways, years ago it was Zippy and Tony. It's going to be 1 year, and we're going to be going Steve and Tony.
Yeah. coming to the 22 to fill. This was kind of a quite a bit of a contest in the offseason because, like I'd mentioned earlier in the show, there was a lot of drivers that were without rides because sponsor lefts or there was a lot of changes in the offseason. David Rudiman was without a ride. AJ Allmendinger was out of the ride. David Reagan was out of the ride. Brian Vickers, they were all without rides. And when the 22 became available, it was kind of a flood of applications going to Penske Motorsports. So it was very interesting. And in the end, AJ Allmendinger gets the seat in the ride.
I don't know if that was a good move on Penske's part or not. Personally, to me, I would have picked up Vickers over Allmendinger, but you don't like Vickers. I don't like Allmendinger.
Well, I have nothing personally against Vickers, but the guy just seems to be involved in a lot of accidents.
They both really do.
I'm not a big fan of. I think of the talent that was out there. I would have been much more comfortable, and I was putting all my money on the fact that David Reagan would be.
I would have
picked
Reagan for sure.
With the simple fact that Reagan won a race.
But he was contending.
There is one thing that I think kind of set the whole process in place was that David Reagan had a great organization at Roush behind him.
Absolutely.
And you can say that Richard Petty, not really what it used to be.
No,
they don't have
it's
the
not.
Organization structure. They don't have the equipment that Roush Fenway has. So I think that kind of takes away a little bit from Reagan's win. Even though he should have won the Daytona 500, he comes back later in July and wins the Daytona race there. Buddy, what do you think? AJ Allmendinger or Reagan, which would you have put in that seat?
I'm going with Reagan.
Well, we all can be proven completely wrong. Only time will tell. That wraps up Turn 2 right here on the front stretch, brought to you by the Party Pantry in Council Bluffs. Get to 35th and 5th Avenue. Save yourself a couple of pennies by getting off the beaten path. It's Turn 3 just around the corner right here on the front stretch on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
Hi, I'm Buddy Ray, driver of the number 25 Party Pantry Modified. When I'm headed to the track or my family needs a fill-up, we all head down to the Party Pantry, locally owned and operated just off the beaten path in Council Bluffs on 35th and 5th Avenue. Party Pantry has some of the area's best prices on food, snacks, beer, and gas, and has a great liquor selection. So stop by and see the whole crew at 35th and 5th Avenue in Council Bluffs, just off the beaten path, where you're treated like family with a name and you're not just a stranger.
Are you ready for fast-paced, adrenaline-pumping, wheel-to-wheel racing right here in the Metro? Get to Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs and see what it's like to race real go-karts. Joe's Indoor Karting knows it's no fun to race go-karts at 10 miles an hour, so they ripped the governors out, and now the only restriction is how good you are at racing. It's full-throttle, white-knuckle racing every day of the week. Head over to joeskarting.com for hours, prices, and specials, or give Buddy a call today and set up your group races at 712-256-3075.